morning, I'm the Technical Sales Director of Antrica. Today I want to talk to you about decoders, specifically decoders used to decode IP video streams and convert them back into an analog or digital video signal. So in front of us here we have two decoders. This one is the ANT-36100 and this one here is the ANT-37500. And apart from the obvious differences in size, there are some other differences. However, before we get into that, let's talk about what do decoders do. So, using this one as an example, let's just move that out of the way for a start. So, here we have a typical decoder. This is what you would find on most decoders. An IP interface which allows the incoming video stream, and then some form of video output. In this case, this has an HDMI output. So the idea of a decoder is it takes in an IP stream and outputs a signal which can be displayed on a monitor. That's the basics of any decoder. So what I'm going to do is talk about the similarities of these two decoders first. So both decoders are capable of decoding a 4K stream, 4K IP stream, with varying frame rates, so either 4K P60 or 4K P30. And by that I mean in full screen. So if you're displaying these on a 4K monitor, both decoders can decode and display a 4K video. However, they can also decode 4 independent streams. So you input 4 IP streams and these would then be 1080p, and the decoders will decode all 4 at the same time but display them as a quad image. So by that I mean, if you imagine this is the monitor split into 4 and the images are displayed video 1, 2, 3, 4 or whichever way round you want to display them. So those are the similarities of these decoders. They both also decode on-viv streams. So effectively, if you've got on-viv cameras, both these decoders can look on the network and find those IP cameras. Okay, so let's dive into the differences between them. So I'm going to move this one out of the way to start with. So we'll start with this little decoder, the ANT-37500. This is primarily designed to be used as a display-only device. So most people that would use this product would put it into a reception desk or a security hut or somewhere in a shop where they just want to display a few cameras and, you know, that's it. That's all they really want to do with it. So this decoder, the ANT-37500, can decode either 1, 4, 9 or 16 streams at the same time. And when it decodes 16 streams, it will display them in a grid of 4x4. The 9 would be a grid of 3x3, and then the 4, as I said earlier, 2x2, and so on. The device comes with a remote control, so you can actually control which of those views or which of those individual streams you're displaying. So you can actually give this to the user. Alternatively, you can actually just set it up so that it recycles or cycles through a number of cameras. So you can actually set it to view camera 1, then switch to camera 2 automatically after 10 seconds, for example. So let's have a look at some of the interfaces. So this device is powered by a 5-volt USB-C. This can be used to power the device from a monitor or from a USB power supply or any other USB source. We also supply a PoE splitter, which allows you to bring in PoE and then splits it out into Ethernet and 5 volts. The other interface here is the HDMI port. So here you can see it's an HDMI 2.0. This is the 4K P60 output. We have the Ethernet interface, and then we also have an analog output. The box can decode one analog channel, and this can be output either as an HDMI audio or as an analog audio. So if we spin that round now. So on the back we have 2 USB ports These are used for firmware upgrades and other restore features at the moment, but they in future could be used for other things such as recording, for example. This area here has a small LED behind it, so you can actually see the status of the box. There is a small micro SD card slot. Again, this is for firmware upgrades when the traditional web interface may not have worked. And then finally, we have a reset power down button, which is used to turn off the monitor and actually put the unit to sleep. On this end here, you can actually see there is a small antenna. This is actually a Wi-Fi version that we used to produce. We no longer produce the Wi-Fi because most customers prefer the security of having it hardwired on the local area network. So this is the 37500. So let's have another look on the 36100, which is the other device. So let's put that there. So on this device, we have an additional output here. Let me try this side first, probably more useful. So we start with a 12 volt power supply. We have audio in and out. Now that's another small difference between this device and the other, in as much that not only do we have an output, but we have an input. And this is used where you have one of our encoders as the source, because our encoders also have audio in, audio out. There is an HDMI output, very similar to the previous device, which allows you to display the video and a local area network. In addition, we have a number of interfaces here. So these two here are basically serial ports, RS-232, 422 and RS-485. And then we have some sensor inputs and alarm outputs, very similar to what you would find on a PTZ camera, for example. If we look on the other side, this is where another unique feature crops up, and this is the composite video output. Now this composite video output outputs analog video in the traditional PAL and NTSC style. It is scaled down from whatever the HDMI is outputting. This composite output will output the same video, but actually scaled down to composite. Now this is extremely useful when you're trying to integrate products into an old analog system, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Underneath here we have some status LEDs. Then we have a USB interface for recording, so you can connect a memory stick here for recording, and then there's a factory reset button. So those are the sort of interfaces on the 36100. Let's talk about some more of the unique features in these products. So this device here can, as I say, display up to 16 cameras with a remote control or without a remote control. But it also has the capability of rebroadcasting whatever the HDMI is showing on the local monitor. This device can actually rebroadcast it as an individual RTSP or ONVIF stream. Now this is quite handy for rebroadcasting the visual output of this device to another device, for example as a slave, or to be used for monitoring somewhere remotely. Another feature that the 37500 has is that it has a web interface that allows you to view the video as well. So this means for a service engineer, they can actually log in remotely into the web interface of this device and actually see what the HDMI is outputting. So that's quite a useful feature of that device. As I said, it will go out and find RTSP URLs, but the other thing is these can also decode other types of streaming formats. So both can decode MPEG transport stream, both can decode RTSP, and both can decode ONVIF. The 37500 can also decode HTTP streams, and the 36100 can decode RTP streams. So depending on what stream format you need, you may have to choose one or the other. Then the other feature of the 36100, which is quite unique, as I said, it already has this analog interface here, which allows you to integrate it into an existing analog system, but it also has an RS-485 interface on this side, which I showed you earlier, which can be connected to a Pelco D joystick controller. And this will allow you to control locally a PTZ camera, for example. But the more interesting feature is that this can integrate into an existing analog DVR type system. So with a DVR, you would connect the analog output to the DVR, you would connect the RS-485 to the DVR, but you would connect the Ethernet to an IP camera. Now, why would you do that? Why would you want to do that? Well, the answer is that analog cameras are becoming more and more scarce. And as you try and replace an old PTZ analog camera in a tunnel or a ship, for example, the camera may no longer be available. So you may have to replace it with an IP camera. The problem with IP is that the network or the infrastructure in that particular installation may not have an IP capability. It may still only have the old coaxial cables. So what you would do is plug this device into the analog network and then plug the Ethernet into the IP camera. So you'd have an IP camera over here connected to the Ethernet using OMVIV, and this decoder can control this PTZ camera using the RS-485 interface and the analog interface on the old network. So that's a use case for the 36100, is integrating an IP camera into an old analog network. The use case for the 37500 is to connect it to something like a reception desk where you only want to see a few video feeds, and actually that's all you want to do with it. So there you have it. Those are the two main differences of the decoders that we sell, the 36100 and the 37500. As I say, this is a smaller unit, useful for putting behind a monitor, USB powered. So obviously a USB output on the monitor could power this, but they both can be powered through PoE, this one with a splitter, and this one has a native PoE capability. And that's about it, really. Those are the main features, similarities and differences between the 36100 and the 37500. Thank you for watching this video. If you would like to see more, please subscribe and hit the like button, and we will be doing more of these in the coming future, comparing products.